498 words about catching an Abra in Pokemon. Published on my website, accordionsprout.com, 23rd of September, 2024. Apart from Magikarp, I can't think of another Pokemon as useless as Abra. Yet, I spent close to an hour walking up and down the same patch of wild grass trying to catch the damn thing. The reason was simple. I wanted an Alakazam. If I'm being honest, on my first run of Pokemon Blue, I wanted a Haunter because his design was sick. I didn't care about his stats, I just wanted a cool ghost-type Pokemon, was disappointed when I accidentally evolved him into a Gengar. Eventually, I opened up a guidebook for the game and realized that Alakazam was arguably the best choice for a Psychic-type Pokemon, and he was actually pretty cool visually. There's something about a man with two spoons. My mind resolved, I headed to Route 24 with 4 Pokeballs in my pocket and got to work finding an Abra. Less than 10 minutes later, I was walking back to the shop for more Pokeballs. Abra has one move when initially caught, but this single move makes it difficult to actually capture it. The move is Teleport, and it's exactly what it sounds like. When the player encounters an Abra in the tall grass, they have a limited window of time, typically 1 turn, before Abra will use Teleport and disappear. Some guides recommend using the move Thunder Wave to paralyze Abra so it can't move and then try capturing it, but most just say throw a Pokeball and hope it works. Outside of the Safari Zone, Pokemon in the original Red and Blue versions don't run from battle, allowing the player the chance to strategize how to capture them. Abra doesn't give the player this chance. Abra will teleport, and the process starts over. Pokemon is a strategy game as much as it is a science fiction role-playing video game. And Abra is one of the few instances where players would have to incorporate strategy outside of combat encounters. There was always some aspect of this, but it was usually selecting Pokemon to include in my team or which Pokeballs to use as I approached stronger enemies. Abra was unique because it insisted that players would have to preemptively anticipate a Pokemon's behavior and then act before it did. While not as cerebral as in-combat actions, this was a change of pace from catching other Pokemon. Even Pokemon like Mewtwo or the 3 legendary birds, Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos, followed the same traditional pattern of the game. Encounter, fight, and capture. Capturing Pokemon was about using the knowledge of the in-game mechanics to weaken a Pokemon before attempting to capture it. Using knowledge of Pokemon types, offensive versus defensive moves, and assessing the optimal HP range for actually throwing the ball all contributed to steadily building up a complete Pokédex. Even if players didn't recognize this, the game's structures were intuitive enough that these thoughts and strategies didn't have to be calculated out. Until Abra. 14 Pokeballs later, I was out $2,800, but rich in one Abra. Joshua Jammer Smith, 23rd of September, 2024. Howdy, I'm Jammer. So, first off, thank you so much for watching. I tremendously appreciate it. I know I say that every time, and I'm going to keep saying it, because, you know what? It's there, and it's true. It really means a lot to me that somebody out there was willing to give me a few minutes of their time to listen to me talk about Pokemon of all things. Like, seriously, you rock. Now, the necessary YouTube claptrap, please like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. It really does help because, one, it lets me see people are listening to this, that they actually want to see these videos or hear me read these essays, or, you know what, or just they like what I'm throwing down. So, hey, if you have a moment, please hit that like button. Or don't. It's your life. You do whatever you want. Second, please, please, please remember that I do have a Patreon. It's in the description section, but it's also patreon.com/jammerdraws, and there is one tier. That's it. It is one tier, and it is $1 a month. And after Patreon takes its share, it's really 50 cents. So I ain't getting a lot from this, and I'm only doing a $1 tier a month because I'm not really cool. I mean, I'm talking about Pokemon on the internet. That kind of goes without saying. But I'm not one of these creators that can do multiple tiers and offer people a bunch of different stuff. I'm just some dude talking into a microphone or writing essays about video games and throwing them on the internet. So if you like what I'm throwing down, if you like the videos, if you like the essays, if you like my visual art, hey, throw me a buck. I'd be appreciative. Now, boring stuff out of the way, let's talk about Abra. And yeah, like I said before, originally Abra was a Pokemon that was there, but I didn't really care because I watched the Pokemon anime, and I collected the Pokemon cards, and I looked at other people who had caught I collected Pokemon cards, I watched the Pokemon anime, and I had friends who played Pokemon just like I did. Some of them had Haunters. Haunter was awesome. To this day, I still will die on the hill that Haunter had one of the sickest in-game visual designs. And while later iterations of Haunter are still really cool, the first one is just sick. He looks, if you Google Haunter Pokemon Blue, he looks like something Clive Barker would have sneezed out while he had a cold or something. It's creepy, and I loved creepy shit. Stuff, excuse me. Well, there goes monetization. Point is, Haunter was cool. I wanted Haunter and nobody else. But then eventually, my original game got erased, and I had to start again. And then I started again. And then I started again. And somewhere around, I think like the 4th or 5th playthrough, I finally realized, hey, Abra's a pretty decent Pokemon, and it's a lot better to keep the Abra instead of trading it for a Mr. Mime. Stay tuned for that essay sometime in the future. Now, what's still fascinating to me mechanically is that in terms of game design, like I pointed out here, Abra is not like other traditional Pokemon where once you get into a fight, you can stick with it. I mean, technically speaking, Pokemon is turn-based combat. You can issue a command to your Pokemon, and then the wild Pokemon will then attack your Pokemon, and it goes back and forth. This is the natural progression of it. But, again, unless you're in a realm like the Safari Zone, where Pokemon are just kind of wandering all about, there is no Pokemon that will run from battle, at least in terms of the original Red and Blue version. When you get to Gold and Silver, you then had the 3 wild dogs that will appear at random, and that's its own thing. But in the first original game, Abra was the only Pokemon that could just escape battle. I do not mind telling you that I learned most of the curse words I know trying to catch the damn thing. Because over and over and over again, I would try to just throw a Pokeball at Abra, and I would watch, and millennial kids will know what I'm talking about, that pain of watching the wee, and then waiting for that third one, and then, of course, naturally, that hard clacking of the Pokeball exploding out. And there's Abra again, teleport, he's gone. It was infuriating and frustrating, and I'm sure I spent at least more than an hour or two walking up and down the same stretch of pixels, trying to catch Pokemon, and instead only being attacked over and over and over again by Bellsprout. And I say Bellsprout because I had blue version. If you had red version, you were probably attacked over and over again by an Oddish, which, honestly, I feel like there's an essay in me somewhere about the frustration of Oddish was way cooler than Bellsprout, but that's probably a controversial opinion. What's important here, again, is that playing this game made me have to strategize outside of the tall grass, whereas there was some strategy outside of battle. Like, again, when you're about to approach an area where you know your rival Gary, or in my case, your butt. That's literally what I named it a couple of times. Trust me, try that one time. It is outstanding. Anyway, sometimes I would strategize by arranging my Pokemon in a particular order because I had lost to my rival a couple of times, reloaded my save file, and knew how to structure it. But even then, there wasn't the same kind of cerebral strategy of having to instinctively prepare myself for a possibility of a battle with a wild Pokemon. Like, that just didn't happen anywhere else in the game. And it's one of those tiny little design mechanics, these tiny little designs that I think really show just how weird and strange and wonderful the first Pokemon game was. Because at that point, it had not become an established intellectual property. It didn't even really have a lot of other commercial tie-ins. It was the first of its kind at that point. So there was a lot more opportunity for exploration and play and experiment from a designer's perspective. And Abra is really interesting, too, from like the in-universe perspective of it, because like I pointed out, even catchable Pokemon like Mewtwo and Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno, like even those Pokemon that are one of a kind and stay in one place and can't be found in the tall grass, even they will not flee from battle. It's just not going to happen. And so, Abra, one of the most weakest Pokemon in the game after Magikarp, stay tuned for that essay too, it's just fascinating to me. Abra begins as one of the weakest Pokemon, but then can become a staple of most Pokemon teams, because anybody who played Red and Blue version, yes, you can eventually catch Mewtwo, and he's pretty strong and powerful, but Alakazam learns so many useful attacks, and he's got solid stats. And that Pokemon begins with the most obnoxious little fox rat that runs away from battle over and over again. It's a little design tick, but it's worth studying in relation to the rest of the game, because it's such a unique perspective, or it's such a unique opportunity to play the game in a different fashion than one has become used to by that point in the game. Alright, I think I'll end it there. Thank you again so much for watching. Whoever you are, wherever you are, thank you. I'll say it again 1,000 times over. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and hey, go play some video games.